Oh, so yes, so we are back and we are continuing with our lesson from where we left off. So in the morning we had left it at variables, where we talked about variables. So I'm just going to brush through functions, modules, libraries, and also talk a bit about classes. But just remember that this is just but a high-level introduction. So these notes will be shared. They'll be shared. They'll be linked to the video recording for this class, so that you guys can benefit from going through them. Should you want to remember the things that we have covered. So as the functions makes it possible for your code to be neat. It saves you time and it avoids repetition. So what happens is you are bringing your block of code. You have written this block of code that you'd like to use it again and again and again. So you can actually have your function and then call it anytime you want to use it. You want to use it such that you won't need to go back and type it again and again. And we talked about repetition. Repetition can be boring, can be tiresome. So look at that example. If we want to define a function, we can define a function such as greet. Define, so def, we agree that def is actually used, it's actually the short form for define. So this is the function that we are calling. We are calling a function called greet. And then we are saying, when this is called, it needs to print hello there. So when you go to your interactive shell, or rather in the Python interpreter, okay, when you go to your interpreter, and then you type greet with that how do you call it, with that bracket, then your output should be hello there. And hello there is of which type? It's of type, it is that type of type string. You understand? So you are defining a greet function, which you are telling it that anytime this function is called, it needs to print hello there. You get? Then functions come with parameters. Functions comes with parameters. So look at this. We have def greet name, print hello name, greet name. So what this does is def greet name, the name here is the name of the person, of the user interacting with your system, because it will be asking for a parameter. For example, it is asking you, what is your name? Then you say, like, for example, you say, it might tell you, welcome to this application. And then it asks you, what is your name? You say, my name is Anaya, for example. And then it tells you, and then you instruct it. Once you have received the name, store it in a variable called name. Store it in a variable called name, and then now print that name, the name that you've stored, and then greet the user using that name. Are you seeing that flow? So def greet Anaya, print hello Anaya, greet Anaya. So when you are greeting Anaya, it will come out as what? Hello Anaya. You get? Fun fact, Anaya is actually my daughter. So hello Anaya. You see that? Beautiful. Cool. Then functions that return values. There are also functions that tend to return values. There are also functions that tend to return value. Like, for example, function like add. If you tell it that this function is to add, and it's going to add, like, let's say, 2 integers. There are 2 integers that it wants to add. Let's say, for example, you have assigned A to be equal to 5, B to be equal to 7. Then you are saying you are defining your function as add. So you want to add these 2 integers, and then as an output, you want it to return the sum of A plus B. So sum will be equal to adding 5 and 7. And when you say print sum, it will just go straight and look at your A and your B, look at the value stored for A, a value stored for B, add them together and give you an output, of which, of truth, 5 plus 7 is what? 5 plus 7 is 12. You understand? You understand? So you see, by doing that, you avoid being overly repetitive. If you wanted to use this again and again and again, you can use it. So you can have a file that has so many functions that have been defined. Like, for example, remember what we talked about in the morning about maybe you have this, you are this photographer who takes a lot of pictures, and then you want these pictures that you've taken, first of all, to be sorted. Then now you have a sorting, you have a sorting function. that takes the pictures and sorts them. After sorting them, you want them now to shrink the pictures. After shrinking, that's another function. After shrinking, you want the shrunk pictures now again to maybe to be arranged in a certain order. After they've been arranged in a certain order, now you want a final function to do what? A final function to go back to the beginning and delete the old photos that came into your system. You know, that is why you get that there are these systems that actually work in a we call it an iterative fashion, where you start from this point, you go to the end of this, and then it goes back to the beginning and does the same thing over and over, just to make sure that systems are robust enough, robust enough. You people, you are all over the place with the charts that you're making me get there to check if someone is asking me a question about functions. Am I the only function you know are weddings and weddings and graduations? Now there are these other functions. There are these other functions that you're talking about here. So let us bring our heads back to class. So that's all about functions. No, that's all about functions. That's just a high-level introduction. Remember, guys, it's just an introduction. Let's look at module. What is a module? A module is a Python file, and we said in the morning that Python files have an extension of .py that contain code like functions, variables, or classes you can import and use elsewhere. It promotes code reuse and organization. If you thought that functions were powerful, then you haven't met modules. Yeah, you know, you haven't met modules, because what modules do, modules takes functions, it takes variables, it takes classes, bundles them together, and then you can use them elsewhere. And of course, we have modules that come already bundled in the Python installation that you did. Remember, we did pip install. So when you do pip install, remember pip is a package manager for Python. And when you were doing that installation in the morning, I told you that what a package manager does, it goes and looks for all dependencies that this particular program or programming language you're trying to install, as in our case, requires to operate properly. You know, so it will go and pick every other module that is needed. You know, it will bring every other module that is needed. So look at that example. File, we have math_tools.py, and inside it, we have defined, look at that. We are defining a function square, x, which is supposed to return x squared. So x by x, not x, yeah, well, it's the same, because it's just the same number that you're multiplying by itself. It's the same as multiplying 2 by 2. It's just the same as 2 raised to power 2, which is 4. Okay, so it will turn x by x. You know, okay, by now, you guys know that when you see an asterisk in programming, an asterisk means multiply. I hope that is clear. I hope that is clear. Then it is, I believe it is double asterisk. Is it double asterisk that is raised to power for Python? Someone remind me, is it double asterisk, or do we use the Nizaju? How do you call those things? There is that sign. How is that sign? I think it's double. It's double. Now look at that. Now you've already defined, you have defined your module. Now you come and import it. Now you see we are now importing this without having to go into it has this or it has this. It has this which does this. So you import this as math_tools, and then you say print math_tools dot square, and then now you tell it the number you want to square. So you want to square 5. So what it will do, it will go and look at the module. Python is this, what is the word? There is this word I was using in the morning. Not petty. This is a good attribute of Python. And Python has the ability of going back to look and understand that this is what you had already given it. So it has already stored the value. You know, you are importing a module. So it will know that this is a module, and within that module, you have a function. And that function has been defined, and everything is running as should. You know, then you'll get your output bio. So you see, if you run that once you've imported that and then you run it, you'll get your output as 25, of which truly 5 squared is what? 5 squared is 25. I hope that one makes sense. Now, again, we are still going deeper. We started from variables. We've talked about functions this afternoon, and now we've just looked at modules. Now from modules, there's another category that is now even more powerful, and this is what we call libraries. So a library is a collection of modules. You remember the way we had this, like the math module that you just seen up there, that is built to help you do common tasks without writing everything from scratch. Your goal as a programmer or as a developer or as an engineer is to make sure that you only focus on the things that add value. You don't need to write everything that a library would have sorted, So instead of you having to sit down and now thinking about, oh, I need to write a full code just to make sure that this thing runs right. No, maybe you want to handle dates and time. You don't need to go into the nitty-gritties of that code to handle that particular function. There is a library called datetime. There's a library called datetime. So you'll just say import datetime, import math, import random, import OS, import request. And similar to the example that we saw in number 3, where we're importing math underscore tools, when you import math, anything that requires that particular library. So library is a collection. So anything that requires anything that has the math modules, it will be found inside the math library. And now you'll be able to run everything in there. You see, like SQRT, which I suspect is square root, and then there is a random library where you generate random numbers. Then there's the datetime library, which helps you to handle dates and time. Then there's the OS. Yeah, like sometimes you see, you can meet this line in your code, os.getEnv, yeah, working with files and folders. Then you have requests, which work with web data APIs, especially now. Another powerful place where you'll be using, where you are likely to use, Python is actually to do we say write APIs or create APIs? What is the right language? You see things like the likes of Fast API. Those ones are actually they benefit a lot from Python. And you'll discover that you'll be using libraries such as requests. I've just seen request and I've remembered it. Yeah. So of all these libraries, I've used them. I've used all of these libraries in some part of my code somewhere in my not so distant path. Now, look at this other one here. Import math. Look at that example. Import math, then print math square root. Math square root, and then you have in bracket 16. The output is 4.0. The output is 4.0. Then, so what you see here as import math, this is a library. This is a library. And within this library, it is possible for you to find that it has all this. It has like a module for tools. It has another module that has math underscore something. So when you give it a task to do, it will first of all import. It will remember that math has been imported, and then it will check within the library for the right module or modules that are needed to run the workload that you, or the workload, or rather the work that you have assigned it. You understand? You see? Then I added classes to our explanations because I understand not everybody understands what a class is. Not everybody understands what a class is. So a class is a blueprint for creating objects. You see the objects that we've been talking about. Everything that we're talking about, the variables, the functions, the modules, all of those. Actually, in Python, everything is an object. That's a fun fact. In Python, everything is treated as an object. So when you talk about modules, those are objects. When you talk about functions, those are objects. When you talk about variables, those are objects. So it is like a plan of building things. A class is a plan of building things. It helps us to organize code when working with related data and behavior. Look at that example. So we have a class person. So in order to start it off, we will start by initializing it. That's why you use def init. Def underscore init in bracket self, name, age. Then you have self.name equals to name self.age equals to age def greet self. So you can greet that person. When you print it out, it will print the name of the person. It will print the name of the person. Like, for example, let's say I want to greet Justin. And then I have asked you what is your name, and you've given me your name. Maybe what is your age? You've given me your age. So what will it do? When I say print, my name is, and then self.name, and then let's say we have a person one, where equals to person. Here we have Toby is a person, and then we have the age of Toby is 9. Then we say person one greet. Then you will hear, hello, my name is Toby. Hello, my name is Toby. So it is taking in whatever you've given it. Just understand that it is taking in whatever you've given it, because these things are stored. A computer, I think we taught you this when we were talking basically about just the general aspects of computers. I told you that a computer without proper instructions is just but a box. But now when you give it instructions, and when we are talking about instructions is now when you give it, when you speak to it in its language, the programming language, like this Python. So when you give it details that, yeah, Toby is 9. So if you want output for the name, maybe to greet him, it will greet him as, hello, my name is Toby. Or if it wants to tell the age of the person, it will say, hello, my name is Toby, I am this. So it depends on the program. I don't know if you guys have tried out, there are these programs. Like I was learning Go the other day, I think about 2 months ago. I was learning Go, and we are learning through making a small application that ranks people who are playing certain games. So there is a place where you do input. So the computer asks you for an input, like what is your name? You say your name. Which city are you from? You say the city that you are from. What this is, you say this. And then now when I want to run and get your details, I'll be able to run and get all your details. It'll show you that this is Pat is from Nairobi. Pat started playing this game on this date. All of that is possible because you are giving to the computer, and then the computer is echoing whatever you've given it back to you. And all of that, remember, all of that is possible because we had what we call variables. And in this case, like for example here, the variables that you can see from this example are things like name and age. You understand? Name and age. Hope makes sense. So if you decide that you want to go the direction of using Python for web development, these are some of the things that you will really, really get good at. Learning how to use classes, learning how to create functions, learning how to bundle functions and other objects to create your modules. And I've just told you that something like, let's say, class person, this one defines a new class called person. In it, this one is run when you create a new object. It is used to set the initial values. Self refers to the current object. Person one is an object or instance of the class. So don't worry about those. Those are for guys who really, 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 really want to understand Nili Vizuri, Python Vizuri, to go deep. But I'm not saying that Python is reserved for a few. If you are thinking of going into DevOps, into security, or into cloud native development, or really interact vizuri kabisa with AWS services, then Python is something that you cannot avoid. Python is something that you really, really, really cannot avoid. So Kuzo helped me come up with this good summary table where we see, for example, the variable, this one stores data in memory, and that one we had agreed. So our variable here is name, and the value is Patrick. Then the function is reusable block of code, for example, def greet. So this def greet, it will be reused in the sense that when the application is running and then user part has logged in, or user part is trying to log in, it will greet me. When another user tries to log in, it will greet that other user because it takes in an input so that I am different from another person. If let's say, for example, Kiprono is trying to, is also trying to use the same application, it will greet him as Kiprono and not as Pat. Then a module is a file with the reusable code. So like, for example, we saw something like import my module. So you can actually do that. You can actually use it that way. Then when you put these modules together, several modules, like what we saw with math, you have different modules. When you bring them together, you create what we call a collection of modules. And an example there again is import math. And finally, a class is a blueprint for objects, and actually class you can actually create classes by, first of all, you need to show, you have to start with class, this class, and then the name of that class. Like, for example, class person, class students, class teachers, class patients, stuff like that. You understand? Good. Now, this challenge, I will give you this challenge for you guys to do. So when I send this to the group, no, when I attach this to the files, to the video file for the class, you guys are free to interact with this. And remember, I've just told you that we are not going to mark this. This is just for those who would like to continue in the development of Python and just to understand it better, to understand it better. And we are here always to support you and even give you materials that you might need, That one marks the end of our discussion of functions and modules. I hope you've understood something. Probably if it looks rushed, it is not supposed to be rushed. But as we have just said, we had to add, hey, Musembi, we had to add some stuff so that guys can understand things better. All right. Barabara kabisa. Which question can I ask you guys? Because you guys are so quiet. I'm not used to teaching a class that we are so quiet. Some of these things are just meant to be this quiet. Any question? Or I ask you mine? Let me ask and see. What is the difference between a module and a function in Python? What is the difference between a module and a function in Python? What is the difference between a module and a function in Python? I am watching and waiting. What is the difference between a module and a function in Python? Musembi, okolea jahazi. People, yani you cannot even Google and just give me an answer there. Let me see. What is the difference between a module and a function? Function is a reusable block of code for specific tasks. Module is a file with a bunch of functions. Yes. And then, of course, library is a file. You can call it a file with a bunch of with a bunch of modules. Thank you, Gail. Thank you, Gail. Where people, you have decided to swallow melons. Awesome. Thank you, Nabo. Thank you, Nabo. Yeah. Cool. Awesome. So let us look briefly into flow control. Flow control in Python. Flow control in Python. Let me see who is this that has written Gideon. Imagine you walk into your kitchen. You don't keep everything. Cups, plates, spoons, sugar, and spices scattered on the table, right? Instead, you have different cabinets or drawers for different items. One for plates, one for spices, one for cups. That's module for you. Each cabinet is neatly organized. So you can easily find So if modules are like you can easily find what you need when cooking. So if modules are like individual cabinets in your kitchen, one for plates, one for cups, one for spices, then a library is like your entire kitchen. I was trying to type that for better understanding. Nice. This is very good. Thank you. It really helps. Somebody please remember that, or somebody copy that to JK Mahali so that you will be able to understand these things. You'll be able to understand these things. And let me tell you why I like that explanation. Sometimes you go into interviews, and in that interview, you are in a panel. And then one person, maybe one out of the 3 people that are interviewing you is an non-tech person. And then you hear, let's say, the CTO asking you that, yes, please tell us, Gideon, please tell us. We know that there are these 3 concepts in Python. We have modules, we have libraries, and we have functions. Now, explain this to an IT person in a way that they will understand. Now you see the example that you've given is so good. You know, the example that we've given is so good because you tell them that now this is what you do. This, exactly the way you've explained it. You know, and that's very, very good. That's very good. I think you deserve a coffee there. Yes. Yes, there it is. Yeah, good. Very, very good. Now, Mwache, guys, stop being stingy with hand claps. Clap for your peers who are doing well. So that when you do well, they'll also clap for you. Thank you. That is awesome. Thank you so much. So let's look at flow control briefly. Flow control means deciding which code runs next. You know, because we have just established that you are likely to have within your file, you are likely to have different blocks of code. So flow control means deciding which code runs next. Python executes code from top to bottom, but sometimes we might want to make decisions or repeat things. You know, flow control helps us to control the path our program takes. So you can tell it from this, do this, or do this other thing, or do this other thing. You know, like, for example, you see here, flow control helps us to handle things like decision making, you know, things like decision making within code, that is within code. So in decision making, we have these terms, which you're going to look at, these 3 terms, if else, and elif. You know, if else, and elif. Actually, it's normally if, else, and elif. You know, if, else, and elif. So the if statement is used when you want to check if something is true. For example, age equals to 18. If age is equal to or greater than 18, print, you can vote. You know, so what you are doing with this simple application, what you might be doing, you might be asking someone, a user, to input their age. Once they've inputted their age, there is an age that you've already defined within the system. You've defined that age has to be 18 and above for this person to vote. So age equals to 18. If age is greater than 18, greater or equal to 18, that is like 19, like 20, you can vote. Print, you can vote. If else, look at that, another option. So this is used to choose between 2 options. So else, so if age is 18 or greater than 18, print, you can vote. Else, check again. If age, let's say, for example, the inputted age is 15. If age is greater than or equal to 18, print, you can vote. Else, print, you are too young to vote. So this person that has entered their age as 15, that 15 is less than 18, so they cannot vote. So they are what? The message they'll get is, you are too young to vote. You know, so those are the 2 conditions. Then the first one was checking if the original condition is met. If it is met, it terminates at that level. You can vote because you are 18 or over. But now, if you are not, if you do not fit the first condition, the second condition is then checked against your input. Now your input is that I am 15. I wish. If age is greater or equal to 18, it's checking if your age, the age that you've given, is greater than or equal to 18. If it is greater, it will print, you can vote, which it will not at this instance. So what will it print? It will print, you are too young to vote. You understand? Then we have elif. Elif is used when there are multiple choices. Look at this new example. The score is 75. If the score is greater than or equal to 80, print excellent. Else, if score is greater than or equal to 50, print good job. Else, print try harder next time. In English, what does this mean? It means a person has scored 75 and you want to submit it to us to certain conditions to see the kind of message or the kind of grading they will receive at the end of their submission. So 75, we know that 75 is less than 80, you know, but our first condition says if score is greater than or equal to 80, say excellent. So in this instance, that will not work. So that line of code will be skipped. We'll go to the next. No, that line of conditions will be skipped. We go to the next condition. Else, if score is greater than or equal to 50, we know that 75 is greater than 50. So here you will print good job. But had they gotten, let's say, a 25, which does not fit the first condition, the if condition, does not fit the elif condition, and it now fits the third condition, the else, which means that it is way below. It is way below the 80. It's way below the 50. Now you say, try harder next time. You understand? You understand? So that is like what we talk of when we are talking about flow control. Okay? Okay, good. So that is the first instance that we can see an example of flow control in decision making. So let's say, for example, I build an application, and this application is meant to grade you guys. Yeah, it's meant to grade you guys maybe based on how you perform in your cases. Now, I have given a condition. I am saying if let's say, okay, let me say that you're doing 10 cases. So those 10 cases, we expect 50. So if you score, for example, if your score is equal to or greater than 40, we give you an excellent, you know. But if your score is below 20, or let us say if your score is equal to or is greater than or equal to greater than or equal to 25, yeah, 25, good job. You're actually katikati average. But if it is below 20, try again or work harder next time. Stuff like that. You see? So that is how you would use that is how hey, yes, sir. Where? Hey. Musembi. Where? I will not say a lot of things. I will not say a lot of things, but I can say you're using your Python to try and strangle someone. Okay, awesome. Yeah, you people. Hey. Okay. So I hope even amidst all that, you guys have understood that explanation for the conditional statement. Then let us look at loops. So loops are very interesting. Loops can help you sort a lot of things, but loops are also dangerous, especially the while loop. The while loop is kind of dangerous, especially if you fail to close it. You have to close that loop, otherwise it will continue running. And I'll give you a story when we get to it. So for loop. So this is used to repeat actions a set number of times or over a collection. For example, we have for I in range 5, print hello I. So here we have another example of fruits. And what you see here, we have a fruit, apple, fruit, banana, fruit, mango. For fruits in front, print I like fruit. So it can print I like apple, I like banana, or I like mango. You see, so it is looping. You know, it is looping. That's why I'm saying for loops, you have to be very, very careful on how you use them. Very, very careful. And while loop, be very careful with while loops because of this next example. But let me read this one first, then I tell you something weird that happened to a colleague of mine. So for while loop, this repeats as long as a condition is true. Count equals to 1 while count is less than or equal to 3, print counting. As long as count is less than or equal to 3, print counting. Yeah, count. Then you have count can be assigned. So it is like you are increasing the count by 1. You see, plus or equal, we said in the morning class that when you see plus and equal, that one is an increment. So you are increasing it by 1, by 1, by 1. Now, problem is this. Let me now give you this story because this is now interesting. I was working somewhere sometime last year. Then there is this team. I was not part of that team because I was attached to the solutions architects department at that time. I had not yet transitioned to DevOps. So this DevOps team, they had written some function and placed it in Lambda. You know, they had written some function and placed it in Lambda. Now, we had left. Let me remember the story. This property as a Java. Yes. So good, I've remembered. So they had written this function, and then they used a while loop which was not closed, and it is Lambda that was supposed to be triggered for this function to run. Long and short of it, when we woke up in the morning, we met with emails upon emails upon emails upon emails, just showing us that the threshold, the free tier threshold for Lambda had been exceeded. And now everything that was running was being charged. You know, because when you get to learn about Lambda, you'll discover that there are a number of invocations. Invocations are those runs, the complete runs that Lambda does. So there are a number of invocations that you get for free. And there are quite many. I think it's 1 million or thereabout. So you can imagine between 4 p.m. in the evening and 8 a.m. in the morning when we go to the office, we had over 10 million invocations. True story. We had over 10 million invocations. And then the biggest blunder we did there is that nobody had, you know, with AWS, one of the things that you guys will learn, there is this thing that we call the SNS topics. SNS topics. These are like notifications that you can get either on your email or on your text in case there are things that need your attention. You know, so it's like it's checking your service to make sure that everything is running okay. You know, everything is running okay. I don't remember the cost, Salem, but it was quite a decent sum. And now, you know, because we were running a proof of concept, you know, we were running a proof of concept for a client. We were that was I think that was like a shield for us. It was like a shield because when you run a proof of concept for a client and you're working with an Amazon partner network, the cost for running the proof of concept is not on you, it's on AWS. You see, it's on AWS. But if we were doing that on our own cost as an organization, then that would have been something quite tragic in terms of cost implications. So it's not even a matter of HR. The problem, the problem that happened there, I remember the name, the owner, the CEO sitting us down. He now had to bring us all together and then just to explain that and told us that, you see, as an organization, we are very lucky that this thing is covered by AWS. And just by looking at his face when he was talking, it means that it must have accumulated some decent sum. You know, it must have accumulated some decent spend. So he cautioned us and also gave us tips on how to avoid it in the future. So the likes of using what I've just talked about, the SNS topics, you know, avoiding loops where possible, avoid using loops. I think Musembi will tell you, in Python, where possible, please try and just stay away from loops altogether. You know, try and stay away from loops altogether because it can mumble stuff. Or if you use it sparingly. Be very, very careful with loops. You see? So that's a very important thing for you to consider. Remember I told you about that service called Lambda, and I told you that Lambda, you can actually write your function in Python. And now when you're writing Python, all of these things that we're talking about here can be used. It can be used when you are writing your Python function, you know, this flow control. Now, I've told you to stay away from loops, but should you be forced to use loops, you can use control statements that can help you. Yeah, it can help you to stay within the margin of safety. like there are breaks, there are continuous, and there are pass. So for break, for number in range 10, if number is 5, break and print the number. Stop and print that number. Or continue. For number in range 5, if number is 2, continue printing that number. So you'll continue printing the number, print the number. So when it hits 5, it will stop and print that number. But for 2, it will continue just to print that number. That's a good loop. And then pass, for I in range 3, pass, maybe we'll write code here later. Maybe we'll write code here later. So I haven't interacted with pass before, but I think that is what it does. I think that's what it does. Now, let me ask you, Musebi, how would you feel being summoned by HR to explain why you've costed your organization, let's say like $5,000 in 6 hours? How would you explain that? How would you feel? And they cannot say that they'll deduct that from your salary. Your salary might not really be that, sizable. So sometimes I think, not really I think, but it's always important to protect yourself. And I remember intern. Yeah. I remember there's that time when we were talking about setting up your own AWS account, and I told you it's also important for you to set those billing alarms. Okay, or set a budget and say, for this function, for this particular program that you are running, we'd like to restrict ourselves to spending a maximum of this, so that when I'm approaching that amount that I've set, let's say it's $100, when I'm approaching $100, I should be notified, so that I go and see if I'd like to increase it or if I'd like to terminate that project. So that is also one of the advices that we were given by the CEO, that always we needed to normalize the use of budgets and billing alarms. So those are very, very important. And I believe there'll be a time that we'll be going through it we'll be going through it. Hey, you started talking about is lower, is upper. Hey. Okay, so a quick recap. So we've talked about all this. If checks for a condition, if age is greater than 18, you are an adult, you can vote. More choices. If age, else age is assigned 18, default action, else. 4, repeat over a sequence for this. So it's normally used for loops, whilst repeats while true. So it will repeat for every time that X is less than 10. Break, that one exits the loop early. It breaks the loop if a condition is met. Continue, this one will keep the current loop, and then pass will do nothing. Pass will do nothing. Again, there's a mini class challenge there that you guys can attempt, should you be interested to deepen your understanding in terms of control flow. Control flow. Okay. So, of those conditional statements, we've talked about if, we've talked about else, and we've talked about if. So always remember that when Python is trying to go through a code, let's say, for example, you have both all those 3 statements in your block of code, it will start first of all by running the if statement and see if the if statement is fulfilled, it will stop there. It will not go to else. If it is not, it will skip that and go to the next one. If the next one is not, it will now go to the very final one, which is else. So it will be looking at each one of them from from if, else, and then finally it closes. So it has to go through all that. It has to go through all of that to make sure that all the conditions have been met. And personally, I like using conditional statements in my code, because conditional statements have a way to ordinarily close themselves. So you don't risk looping. You don't risk looping, because what happens is that if a condition is not fulfilled in the first line, is not fulfilled in the second line, the third line ordinarily closes everything. It catches all conditions. You know, it catches all conditions in the third one. So that is what we wanted to say in flow control. And you guys will be meeting, I believe, let me see. You will be meeting, let me see, functions. There is a KC for functions. There's a KC for flow control. There's a KC for Python basics. There's a KC for introduction to Python, you know, Python, introduction to Python. These labs, by the way, these labs are very interesting. These labs, they are very, very interesting. I think yesterday I was just checking to see if these things run well. I did this lab and it was quite an interesting one, you know, preparing to analyze insulin with Python. So this is very interesting. So do these ones, and then you know, when doing those labs, you can't help but notice the power behind Python. As in, you can use Python even in the how do you call this one? In the medical field. You know, you can use Python in the medical field. We normally say, and actually I think it's my mentor who told me this or told us this. He told us that one of the benefits we have as people in IT is that we can work across different fields. Like, for example, someone like Musembi is in banking. You can find someone else is working, let's say, in the health sector. Another one is working in edutech. You know, you're saying that the labs do not have what? Submit button. Which ones? I believe Joy mentioned to you that some of these labs are not being graded, so you don't need to submit them, some of them. But I am really yet to check. You see, like these labs, I don't know if you discovered that these labs actually build on each other. You do this first one, you click on next, go and do the next one, you click on next. You are doing almost all of them zikifuatana, as in one after the other. Who has tried doing the labs, and maybe you can tell us about that submit button? Or Frank, you've seen that, yeah? Yes, because yeah, no submit. Yeah. So if a lab does not have submit, once you are done with it, just click next, go to next, go to next. I think they'll be graded all as one because they build on each other, you know. But I'll check the just give me a second. Let me write that one down. I will need to check that so that I give you proper guidance. Nisiwambie za job up and then I start asking you why didn't you do these labs? So give me a sec. Let me just write that. It's only the last lab that can be submitted for Python. So that's exactly what I was telling you. I was telling you that these labs, like they build on each other. And then once you've done the final lab, it's that final lab that now closes everything. But if you sit down, let's say over the weekend, you sit down and you decide that you want to do all these labs, you can actually do them because they are very short. And they are interesting because they build on each other. You know, whatever you learned from Hello World, you will see it in numerical data types, you'll see it in string and data, and then you move like that. You know, you move like that. So I will check. Let me write here, check the labs. Joy mentioned it to me that these labs are not they're not being graded. And submit button, button. The last one is independent. Let me see. Which one is it? Tell me the lab, the lab title or the lab number. Let me try and run this one in the meantime. What is the lab number or the lab title? And it's good to see that some of you have already started working on this lab. That's very encouraging. Also, remember what we've been saying since we started. You become good by doing. Eh? You become good by doing. 141. Okay, I'll check it. So you see, like this one does not have a submit button. does not have a submit button, but once you are done with it, just click end lab. The way they are saying end lab, and then you click next and you go to the next lab. You see there are like 17 labs here. These are like 17 labs that you will do from Hello World all the way to the 17th lab. And you can see the 17th lab is about debugging the Caesar Cipher program. You see? And now you have like all of this. Remember we talked about def. You see? Def get message, string to encrypt, and then return string to encrypt, then get a cipher key, def get a cipher key. You see? The things that we just talked about, you know, a block of code. And here is our comment, encrypt message. Here is our comment, decrypt message. Here is our comment, the main program logic, you know, and then you can see everything, how it's supposed to look like. And remember, we were talking about, did we import any modules here? Are any modules imported? I don't see anything being imported here. Good, good. You see now by interacting with search, it gives you that understanding. So you are right, there is no submit button at the end of that lab. Cool. So just do these labs until the end. Once you've done the first one, end the lab, go to next, do the second one, end lab, go to next, do the third one, end lab, do next. Just do all of them. Do all of them. Then before we go to the next, let me check. I think I can check this thing while we are in class. Let me just check something. But again, fact that it's not being graded does not mean that you should not do it. Do it because Canva might deny you graduation if you discover that you've not finished the coursework. So please do it. Please do it. Yeah, this is what I'm looking for. So you guys can see that we can see your grades from where we are, so that we know the guys that are not doing what they're supposed to do. My class, you guys are trying, but some people are still behind. I will give people some virtual ngotos. But you guys are really trying. This is impressive. And I believe the same is replicated in 54. I'm trying to look at these labs, evaluate what? This is evaluate DevOps tools, okay. Databases. So it looks like Python labs are not getting scored. Okay, cool. But please do them, so that Canvas graduates you and you get your voucher and you sit your exam. Well, that was a good breather. I needed just a breather kidogo before we go on to systems administration. And for systems administration, I wanted to, I'm trying to ask myself, which one should I use? Because this is quite something. Let me check my notes first. I have my own summarized notes. System administration is a very important topic. If I had an extra day, I would have taught it on its own day, just by itself, show you how it works. But if we moved it to next week, it will cause a backlog in your presentation. So we go push on. So let us look at systems administration. Systems administration. This is our last topic, and then you guys can take a break. Let me see if this one has a KC. There is something I did not want to touch. If it has a KC, I'll need to know what to do about it. Question: Did when you were doing you did DevOps and continuous integration, right? Yesterday with Joy, you did DevOps and continuous integration. Did you? Somebody, please talk to me if you are in class.
Yes.
Now, did you also do configuration management?
No.
Okay. Okay. So configuration management, not very sure if we are going to cover that today. But if I leave it, I don't have a group to give. It's short, but just give me a second. There is a bit of repetition here. I don't know why they saw it fit to put it different from. They should have bundled it together with version control, but no problem. I think we'll finish with this. But first of all, let us just do a quick overview of Python system administration. Python system administration. So you remember when you were talking about Linux, I told you that Linux is a very powerful tool for what? It's a very powerful tool for sysadmins. And now that we have introduced you to I told you back then that bash scripts ran in Linux are very powerful for systems administration. Now, after you having a test of what Python can do, you can also see that Python can also be used for what? For system administration. So by the end of this course, or by the end of this module, you should be able to define system administration, use Python functions to manage users, handle packages in Python code, and use os.system and subprocess.run to run bash commands in Python. To run bash commands in Python. To run bash commands in Python. So that is what you can do. That is what you can do. Now, that's what you can do. So, what is systems administration? And I know that some of you guys are interested or might grow an interest in this field. So, system administration is also commonly abbreviated as sysadmin. It's the management of hardware and software systems, and it ensures that computer systems and all related services are working well. So some of the common tasks that a sysadmin will do include installation of new hardware or software, creating and managing user accounts. Remember we talked about that. And maintaining computer systems such as servers and databases, and planning and properly responding to system outages and various other problems. So a sysadmin is also a firefighter of sorts, quote unquote. So they plan and they respond to system outages and other problems that might be affecting their systems. So that's what a system admin, that's what a sysadmin does. So how could you use Python to make system administration tasks easier? Someone had answered this. Now let me see if you guys remember. How can we use Python to make our work as, let's say, sysadmins easier? Somebody? Take a wild guess. Automation. Yes, wonderful. Thank you, Elfas. Automation through scripting. Yeah, good. Using Python scripts for automation and scripting. Awesome. Powerful. Good. So we've seen that we can use Python to write programs or scripts that we can run to help us do a couple of things. If you recall, there is that time that you are doing a lab that required you to create users, then add these users to what? To groups. But now, as a sysadmin, with the power behind your wings or under your wings, where you're now able to use Python for scripting, you can actually write a script that will achieve the same function in one click. So you just run that script, and that script will be able to do a couple of things. One, create users or add users to the system. After the users have been created with their accounts and everything, their password and everything, then it adds these users to what? To their groups, to their groups. So you can either use shell script or a Python script, either of those. But remember what we said about shell scripts, aka bash scripts. Bash scripts are normally used with Linux. Linux, but for Python scripts, they can run across different operating systems. They can run on Linux, they can run on Windows, and they can also run on Mac OS, you know? So that is why even when you're doing that function, the function that I'm talking about, where you want to create users and then add them to groups and then assign them permissions, you know, and then assign them permissions, all that, you can achieve that with ease using Python script, because you want your script to be able to run across different platforms. You don't want it just to be able to run on Linux. Hope that makes sense. Cool. So what are some of the benefits of systems administration? So system administration helps to increase efficiency in that they help to identify and solve problems before the business is affected. As sysadmin, let's say, for example, in a place like a bank, as sysadmin, it is the work of the sysadmin to catch those bugs early before the bugs become severe enough to affect the critical functions for the organization. So that's one. Then shows that systems are stable and working smoothly. So their work is not just to catch bugs. They're also supposed to be monitoring the system on a continuous basis to make sure that the systems are stable and working smoothly. Thankfully, nowadays we have dashboards, different dashboards that are available for systems administration. So you'll be able to see logs, traces, and metrics that are being visualized on this dashboard so that you know that, yes, this server is running properly, this database is working at its best, this one is showing some warnings, I need to attend to it. Then when you attend to it in good time, you'll avoid catastrophic failures. Hope that one makes sense. So those are some of the benefits of systems administration. Now, there's an activity here which I'm not going to do, but you guys will be able to do. The following slides contain code snippets for managing users. Use your current knowledge of Python programming to read the code and decipher what it does. So here we will just try and look at it on a high level, because you've talked about this. Yes, Salem. Visualization with Grafana. Powerful. Grafana really helps to visualize whatever is happening in your system. That's very, very important. So the activity here is adding a user. So we want to add a user, and we have this function, def new user, confirm, and then while confirm is not yes, username input. So if the confirm is not yes, a new user is trying to get into your system. You are asking them if they already have an account, for example. Just giving this some meat so that you understand what is happening. This what is happening in the background. Now, you are trying to ask them if they have an account. If they say no, or they say they want to register, then you will ask them to input, to choose their username, print their username, and then once this has been confirmed, it will be entered. Now, when you see .upper, maybe you want, I hope this one is right, .upper. What does .upper mean? Let me see. I know .upper, .lower, I know there is lower. My teaching assistant, Musembi was expecting you to tell me what is upper, is lower. What .upper and .lower do? So you are trying to confirm. Let me just get it here. Musembi has gone to look for Chaya Zakumi. Ama nakwekelea. Ameenda kutafuta uji. Na Ridge, leo umenyamaza. Is Ridge around? Hey, Ridge. No, this is now an interesting thing about people that we know. People always engage. If you're not around, we will know that you're not around. Yes, Musembi, you're back. Tell me, what does dot, okay, let me see, where is that? Give me a sec, I get that screen back. Tell me, what does this mean? Yeah, confirm. Now, who broke this hat? Confirm input dot upper. What does that line mean? We are looking at the input that the user has keyed in. What are we checking with the dot upper? What happened to this? Yes?
It is for checking whether if the user enters a lowercase y or n, converted to uppercase and the vice versa.
Ah, okay. So dot upper, what happens if they enter a lowercase in this instance? Will it return an error?
No, it converts to uppercase.
It converts it to uppercase. So it does not matter whether they have entered a lower y or an upper y.
Yeah.
Ah, good. Cool. So this is for converting. Ah, very nice. So is this different from is upper and is lower?
Do we have is upper and is lower in Python?
No. It's not in Python. It's not in Python.
I think you're talking about JavaScript. Right?
Yes. Do they do the same things? Are you familiar with both of them?
I believe upper. Sorry.
Okay, someone is saying something.
I believe in this scenario, the one that you're asking is upper just confirms if the input has any upper cases, and then now in this one, upper changes the whole input
into uppercase.
Into an uppercase.
Nice. So the whole of this. So we are adding a user. Now we are adding a user to our system, right? That is what this function does. Sindio? That's what this function does. And you can see here at the end of it all, we are elevating our permission, sudo add user. So you remember when we were doing it in Linux the other time, we had why is ha and a becoming a problem in my mouth today? Where we needed to elevate our permission so that we are now able to do that to do that task. That's why we use sudo. That's why we use sudo. So that is very, very good. That's very good. So whatever we have discussed is what you see here. You can see continues while the user does not enter y. If you don't enter y where y is yes, it continues. So the first thing it checks if you say n, it stops there. No, if you say y, sorry, what am I saying? If you say y, let's say the question is, do you have an account? You say yes, it stops there, and maybe now it takes you to a different route altogether, maybe now the login route. But if you are new and you are supposed to be added to the system so that you get your authentication parameters, so that next time when you come in, it will see you as a user, it will take you through the entirety of that process. Like now see this line. You remember we talked about a string. So the username will takes a user input and assigns it to a variable. The variable that we have here is variable username. So this is our variable for now. And now this variable, it will take that and then put it there. And then you drop all the way to that. The isUpper method in Python checks if all the characters in a string are uppercase. So isUpper. So you want to mean that we also have isUpper in Python? That's nice.
Yes, it's in Python.
And does it also feature in JavaScript?
I believe so. Yeah.
Able check. Because okay.
So I think in JavaScript we have. JavaScript we have two uppercase, lowercase. We have two uppercase and then two lowercase.
Oh, for conversion, or? That's for conversion, right?
Yeah.
Ah, good. Good. Naona mnanitoa vumbi ya programming. The cobwebs are being removed. That's very nice. I like this. This is very good. This is very good. Awesome. Thank you. Now, that first function was adding a user. We also have a function to remove a user. You see now this one, the first one added a user. This one now removes a user. Are you now seeing the power behind scripts? And it's actually the same flow, of course, with a few tweaks here and there. And now you can see even the command that we are using. It is still sudo userdel. Userdel is to delete -r. We said -r means recursively. So we are going to delete a user, and then you add their username. And for this one, if I may go back, we have sudo add user. So add user adds a user. Adds a user. Then userdel deletes a user. Good. I want you guys always to remember that knowledge is cumulative. So the things that you learned previously are the same things that you are building on today. That's very important. Now, when you're adding a user to a group, so remember we said, the lab that I was making reference to, we started first of all by creating users. So we created users, and then we say that this user has this password. Okay. Then after we did that, we then came to the next step where we are now adding these users to groups. I remember, if memory serves, that we had a group called CEO, which I think had only one user. We had a group for HR, we had a group for marketing, and the others. So look at this. Defining, we are adding user to group. So that is the name of what we add. That is like the function that we are trying to implement here. Now see, username, input, enter the name of the user that you want to add to a group. So if you had several users, like I have Naboth, I have Salem, I have Musembi, I have Esther, you see, I have Leonard, I have Juma. I want to add all of this in the group. It will be very easy for me to do it using what? Using a script. And then now for the output, subprocess.p open, then you can see now all that they are writing there. Then you print, enter a list of groups to add